Snowy peaks and open skies, northern winds whisper goodbyes. Dreams take root where the maples grow, a land of promise where rivers flow. Welcome to the north, where the light shines so bright, chasing every dream beneath the stars tonight. Every step you take, a journey to belong, building futures here where hearts grow strong.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of our Canada Immigration Live Q&A. We're crossing over into the 500s now on these little critters, but boy, it is the highlight of my week. I love getting on here. How are you doing, Alicia? Good to have you here today.
Yeah, doing well. It's, the time change has happened. It's actually feeling a little bit like spring. We're getting a bunch of snow. There was a nasty blizzard on the weekend that we got caught in, but, this is springtime in Canada.
Indeed. Alicia's mic is acting up a little bit today, but we can still hear her, which is good, but she won't have that sultry voice that she usually has, so we'll soldier through today. We just finished recording an episode of the Canadian Immigration Podcast, another Express Entry Getting It Right series, and this is all on claiming both Canadian and foreign work experience at the same time, which may be possible. So get over there, watch the Canadian Immigration Podcast, episode 175, which will be released right away. Actually, do you know, I think this one I was saying it was 175, but I think it's 176. So anyways, we'll see what happens. Anyways, 175 or 176, watch both of those. They're both good. So we are back at it, and there's been quite a bit of, change and things going around within immigration. We've had a lot of our clients who've been receiving rounds of invitations, and invitations to apply. If we go back here, Alicia, we jump over, we can see the most recent one was about a week ago, and number of invitations issued, 250. And this was the first senior manager, version 1, 2026, only 250. And the lowest candidate invited was 429, which is not surprising. I'm not surprised at all by this score. Are you?
No, it was a pretty high score, all things considered. So we'll have to see if it stays at that level, or if maybe it's going to be, hopefully
we'll see other people who are invited to apply. The difficulty with this one is that most people who are senior managers are not 29 anymore. So that's the big issue with points. So
pretty cool. And Alicia just managed to fix her audio. So now it's coming in nice and good. Awesome. So yeah, really small number. If we look at the previous rounds, we can see what else is happening. And if you watch episode 175, I talked about all of this in detail. And so I think the senior manager round of invitations came after I released that episode of 175. Alicia was busy last week, so I did a solo version. But if we look here, we're still going strong with the French. Lowest score, 397. So we're breaking the 400 threshold. I just did a consult with some French individual French speaking in the US who's looking to immigrate. And it's a pretty easy discussion with them, Alicia, because if you speak French and you're fluent, you're pretty much guaranteed. Like anyone that has a decent human capital, even if you're old, you can still make it work. Even if you are not getting many age points, if you've got a bachelor's degree or, 2 or more credentials and your French is, you've got a little bit of English and your French is perfect. It's pretty hard not to qualify, because when you look at a score of 397, basically, I think there's about 74 points maybe that are up for grabs. I think there's 24 additional second language points. So, you've got about, if you're fluent in both, you've got up to 74 points, which puts you down into the low 300s for actual human capital. So it's quite interesting. And then, of course, we're happy to see that there's larger CEC draws that are happening. We had 2 that stayed at 508. We talked a little bit about this last week, but how does it stay at 508 when you do 6,000 here and then you do 4,000 here? Well, one of the reasons is because there are so many people that are all crammed into 508 and 509. And so when they did this first draw, only the very first few of the 508s, I think it was February or something was the cutoff. We could look here, but I won't waste time. And so you had everybody else who had submitted ITAs last year who were all sitting at 508. They didn't get drawn on this one, but did get drawn on this one. So we saw our physicians coming again, the 169, super low. And we talked about this. I don't know how a physician gets through with a, with 169 score, but yeah, hopefully they're not my physician. Okay. All right, we'll leave it at that. So we can see a little update on the rounds of invitations there, just to get everybody caught up. And if you're new to the channel, we had a late start just because we were trying to wrap up the podcast. We had some technical difficulties. I had to take my Pathfinder in to get serviced. And then I had to sort out this massive quote they gave me on what I was going to do myself versus allow them to do. In the end, we got a little bit of a late start with our podcast recording, and this is how we roll here. This is what you see is what you get, you guys. You know, Alicia and I, we do our best to do this repeatedly, and it's hard to believe. And Alicia has been with me, you know, for the vast majority of those lives. I may have done, you know, maybe 40 or 50 before she joined, but I remember Alicia, at first she was pretty anxious about joining me on a live and just answering questions. And now she's the highlight of this live Q&A. I'm kind of the person running the camera, and she's the brains behind the operation. So I'm so grateful to have her here doing this. Okay, those also who are tuning in, obviously our minister made some comments to the Toronto Star, which are all about this 33,000. And if you, I think it would say Wednesday, I think it's this afternoon. Is it this afternoon? I think it might be. Just give me 1 second here. Yes, this afternoon at 3:30, I'm going to join Lou Jansen on his new YouTube channel to talk about this 33,000. And if you look on YouTube and you just type in 33,000, you see all of this stuff, people peddling, oh, you know, here, put your name down, be first in for 33,000. And I gave all of my views on it. Now, it's interesting, Alicia, because Lou had another reporter, and it'll be fun to talk about this here in this afternoon. But there was another reporter that reached out to IRCC to get clarification, because Minister Diab here was kind of off on a little frolic of her own. She had made comments like the program has already started and they've already rolled it out. And so what does that mean? In my episode, I did a live stream. When was it? Monday, I think. Monday, I believe. Oh, it's all a blur. Just to kind of try to give some balance to all of this frenzy of people all clamoring and wondering, well, we know nothing about what they're doing at this stage, but the minister said, you know, we will release more information in April, which doesn't help. And so is it a new program? Well, IRCC came back and said, no, it's not a new program. So then what is it? Because the annual levels plans don't in and of themselves contemplate some new special measure or something like that. You know, and what is a program? They're always playing with words. What is a program? Is a program something that is like the Ukrainian family permanent resident program, or is the TR to PR pathway, is that a program, or is that a special measure, right? And so there's a lot of room to kind of play. But Alicia, in that report, that response from IRCC, they did say that it's not a program, but they did still allude to the fact that it was something in my mind different than what they're doing now. And if you look at the underlying discussion and what has been published by the government on this 33,000, it's all about work experience in Canada and in-demand occupations, which is that not express entry? And so lots of people, and I'm still, very, very on the side of these new category-based draws, or as much as anything, going to encompass those 33,000. But we just don't know with 100% certainty, but the minister definitely has created confusion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I've had a number of people reach out and say, am I eligible? What do I need to do right now? How do I gather my documents? Is it going to be another race to file like we had last time with the TR to PR, which was a giant schmozzle? But it does sound like, they're doing something on the back end to be able to prioritize or process certain applications that they have viewed that people are here for over a year. They're working in maybe priority occupations or maybe priority areas, right? We know the rural northern immigration pathway program. We know some of the rural communities, especially in the provinces, those get maxed out right away and the systems have to close. So who knows? Maybe it's just that they decide that they're going to push through a bunch of people who are already in the system and say, we did it under this measure.
Yeah.
It might just be that.
Yeah. And then you look, I couldn't help myself. I got to go to the YouTube channel here. So you go through here and you can see all of these people, program launch, Canada, and they called it a soft launch. I love this. What the heck is that? Is that like a soft landing? Anyways, so you've got all of these people pumping it out here, all of these, TR to PR, TR to PR, and oh, hey, look, mine's on the, look at, if you go to the YouTube channel, people have watched mine. Mine is like, okay, put this in context, everyone. This is not, we don't know anything about it. And so there were a couple things that I will point out for those that are watching now. So if they were to create some new program that is time-based, like a race to file, which is personally, I think that's the cruelest thing in the world. But if they were to do it, then, and I talked about this in my video, please, please make sure you ask whoever you're hiring to help you, if you choose to do that, what place you are in the line, what place you are in the queue, because under no circumstance should you be anything other than number one on the list. When we did the TR to PR pathway back in 2021, I created a course and I workshopped, I think it was over 500 people through that at the same time. But also, I helped one family
And
do
I
the
helped
TR to
one.
PR pathway. And Alicia helped one family. And we did not do more than that, because by the time we got it submitted, now we knew what was happening. I think my family and my particular family had 4 children as well. So a mother, father, and 4 children. So it took a little bit longer than a single applicant to get submitted. But I think we got it submitted in about 20 minutes. The record in my TR to PR pathway course, and maybe some who are watching this benefited from it, I think the record, and we tracked it, was about 8 minutes. So someone got their entire PR application submitted in 8 minutes, and lots of the people did, because they were well prepared. They knew what they needed. They had it all queued up. We talked about strategy to file quickly, having information in a spreadsheet that you could copy and paste, because it was a literal race. And with 90,000 spots that they had earmarked for this, it was so competitive, in fact, that when people were clicking submit, that there were so many simultaneous clicks for submit that the system didn't catch that there were 2 people clicking. And so there were, I think, 8,000 additional spots that they didn't cancel. So it was about, that got through just because of a duplicate click. That was how fast it happened. And really, it opened, I think, at 10 Mountain Time, and it was finished at noon. Realistically, for the programs that were super competitive, like the international student one, and those who submitted first, they had their PR applications processed in like 2 weeks, Alicia. And those who were at the end, very end, and there were some categories where there just weren't as many people. It took a while for the categories to fill up, like some of the Francophone programs. But 3 years, almost more than 3 years to get your permanent residence. So that was the difference in half an hour to an hour meant PR in 2 weeks or 3 years, essentially. So if that happens, we will be ready, trust me. But at this stage, it's a lot of just I don't know how to describe, fear mongering, and people just trying to drive clicks. And if I go here, like, you can see how misrepresented these are. Canada launches new TR to PR. Is it launched, right? Well, that's the question. 33,000 PR spots. TR to PR Canada 2006. Canada soft launches, which is the minister's own word, so I don't fault them for saying that. Quietly launched a program. Well, what does this mean, Kabir? Seriously. And then you look, Canada Immigration Minister announces changes, and you have all of these little people all just trying to funnel you to them. And so I just would advise significant caution. And, when it comes to these race to files, if you educate yourself, sometimes it's almost faster. Well, if you have someone you can trust who knows the system in and out, then it's good to get assistance. But if you are second in the line or third in the line, bail and do it yourself. Whew, there we go. So I'm sure people have a few questions about that. All right, let's see who we've got tuning in today. It's great to have everyone here as always. So Koya says, hello guys, watching from Athabasca, minus 10 degrees here, not too bad. That isn't too bad. What have we got there in Calgary, Alicia? What's the temperature in Calgary?
We're at -2 and windy.
Nice. We're a +1 down here in Lethbridge. So weather, boy, we're getting old. That's the conversation, talking about the weather. You're very welcome, Indy. And Indy attended my 33,000 because I remember you had posted questions, I believe. Excuse me, in comments. So good to have you here. And let's see. Oh, Lord says, I love the intro song. Please, is there a way we could download it? Do you know what? I will find a way, and I will absolutely share it. So this is the beauty, right? Because I remember when I first started my Canadian immigration podcast, if you listen to some of the very, very first episodes, at the end, I played a song that there was this nice couple. They called themselves Gifty Song, and they did little personalized songs for podcasters. And so that song I used to play a lot at the end of my podcast, and I still have that one. But this one was entirely generated by AI and Suno. I did it in there. A couple comments where I wanted it to focus, and it's an awesome little song. So AI is such a cool tool, and it really kind of captured, kind of how I felt about what we were trying to do here. And so we'll definitely make that available for sure. So probably in the description, I'll connect that in. So I'll let you know where to find that. And yeah, Joe says, such a beautiful song, even if it's AI made, you bet. Sunny weather here in Calgary. Yeah, it is, Joe. It's nice to have sun. Okay, Razzle says, hey guys, listening from Lethbridge. Oh, Lethbridge. I better get the sound effects going here. Get some applause for Razzle. Oh, yes, I remember Razzle, because Razzle, we were questioning the dazzle. That's right. So listening from Lethbridge, I got another invitation to apply last Thursday. Yes, I won't miss the deadline this time around. That's awesome. We're so happy for you. Okay, let's see what else we have here. If it's your first time, please let us know where you're clicking, like where you're tuning in from. We love to see that. Vancouverite boy, happy to see you there. And and then we've got our greetings from Ottawa and our freezing rain. Freezing rain. That's not very fun. Not fun at all. Crazy Bob again. That's awesome. Crazy Bob again says, hello, Mark and team. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much. We appreciate that. Okay. And then Steph, yes, this is something we're seeing a lot of, Steph. So hi, friends. Greetings from Burlington. I'm filling my express entry application, but the portal seems frozen. Did you experience the same in any recent application? Yeah, it freezes a lot. It's been really bogged down. And, for a while, they had this sorted out. So in the beginning, I should say, when was it? Probably 2021. It was really starting to bog down, maybe a little bit earlier than that. It's kind of like a hard drive. Imagine your hard drive is like 99% full. And that's kind of how it was. So then they created all the other portals, the PR portal, the IRCC portal, to get people out of the GC key so it would give it more room to breathe. But then they don't even change or update things. Like anyway, so I think right now, because of all of the large draws that they've been doing, there's just more people accessing the system. And so what happens is you'll see it timing out sooner. And one little tip I'll throw out for everyone, if you're completing a very long travel history, and you are, adding information in and your screen isn't really changing a lot, you could time out, not know it. And then when you go to advance, it's frozen. Well, that's because it's kind of timed out because you haven't done anything. There's been inaction. In other words, you're looking up, okay, when did I actually travel to that country? What were the dates? So the recommendation I always give my clients is do a couple and then save it. go out, then go back in, do a couple more, save it so that it's locked in, and then you don't just lose a whole bunch of your travel history or your address history or whatever it is that you're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alicia,
But yeah,
please.
I had the same problem yesterday. I was doing a 2.5 hour express entry review, and the whole system just kept locking up, and he kept logging in, and then it kept locking up. And so we could never,
Yeah.
and we tried to change a screen, and then it shows, yes, you change from no to yes, but then it won't give you the second question that I know is supposed to be there, but isn't there.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we have to have another meeting because we just can't access the portal right now. So
Yep.
just keep
Yeah.
at it,
And
keep saving.
definitely a known issue. And it's really slow. So even if like I was doing what was I doing? A postgrad work permit or maybe a spousal work permit. And it was really slow advancing through uploading the documents. It was just taking forever. So sometimes that's how she rolls. And so you try to, if you're working on things, maybe try not to do it during regular business hours. Maybe try in the evening, and then maybe things will be a little bit easier. Okay, so we have here, Joe says, next week CEC lowest CRS. That's the question. So Joe was asking here if our little crystal ball, all right, Alicia, are we going to go below 508? What do you think?
I think we're going to be exactly at 508 again. I think there's so many
508
people at
again.
508.
Awesome. That could
And
be.
here's
I'm gonna go with the 506. I'm
all right.
gonna no, that's crazy. I'll go 507. I'll go 507 because we know, let's just go back and just take a look because this is really, you have to understand kind of the world that we're in right now here. So we'll do the rounds of invitations here. I'll slide over here to the web. Okay, we'll get rid of our crystal ball and we'll go back to the rounds of invitation. So if we look at the rounds of invitations, do we have another round and we didn't even need it? No. So if we look at the rounds of invitation, we look at the score distribution as it was when this round happened. You can see here, I wish they would break this down, but 14,031 in there. So we know that the majority of this 14,031, because of the order in which the rounds of invitations happened, I think it was at the fourth. Oh, actually, let me just go back here. Oh, wrong one. Excuse me. If we go to the previous rounds, we'll see that they were close together. So 5, 4, 3. So we know that this fifth, there probably isn't too many more that were piled in because only 250 were drawn. So if we go back to our fifth one, which is the most recent one, and we look at the score distribution as of March the 1st, so they didn't update it. So actually, this is kind of interesting too, you guys, because this is as of March the 1st, the score distribution had 14,000 between 501 and 600. And if we once again go back here, let's close this, go back to the previous round. So after March the 1st, so this one this one, March the 1st, all of these, so 264, 4,000, 5,500 here, 2,500. We can see this one is really low. So we know that there were 4,000 at 508 and above as of March the 3rd. And so if we go back to the March the 5th, there's quite a few that were stripped away here. So if there were 4,000 that were still available above 508, and we go back to our, see if I can get back to it here. If we go back to our score distribution as of March the 1st, we know that maybe there was, excuse me, above this level, we know that 4,000 were stripped away. And so, and some of the French as well, but the French scores were pretty low. I wish they, like I said, I wish they would break this down, but you know, at that level, between 500 and 508 after that draw, boy, it's hard to know how many are at each number. But
Well, and I'm just
realistically,
looking
I think 3,000 probably, there's probably 3,000 that are at 507 at least.
at least, because
Mhm.
if you look at the cutoff, the tie breaking
Oh,
breaking
when was
rule
the
on the
cutoff at
last
508?
CEC,
That's right.
yeah,
Oops, go
June
back here.
24th, 2025. So almost an entire year, right? Like we're looking at the better part of a year on the tiebreaker.
Whoa.
So
Okay, let me look
yeah,
at that again. So the previous rounds, if we go back to this one, the second one, and we
the
look
third,
at
March 3rd.
this,
Yeah,
so March the 3rd, wow.
yeah,
Oh, there's a ton at 508. So there's
yeah,
still many that didn't get the ITA. So
right,
remember before it was
exactly.
like February. And so it went
Yeah,
from February to June. So there's a massive number that are still at 508.
Yeah.
Wow. It's interesting. Well, I guess, the points are just structured in such a way that they're going to congregate at certain specific numbers just because of the way the CRS calculator works. So,
Yeah.
wow.
Because Mark, if we look at Express Entry Draw
Mm,
396, the
mhm.
tie-breaking rule for that one on the
Yeah.
6,000 was
It's
March
February.
16th.
Yeah,
March,
March. It was March 16th.
yeah,
Okay.
2025. Yeah.
Huh. Inter-
So we made it from
interesting.
March to June on the tiebreaker, but I still think
Yeah.
there's a big cohort in there.
Oh, June to December or July to
Yeah.
December, a large one. There we go. So this, well, boy, then I don't know. Maybe it's still 508. Maybe I do believe Alicia. I think I'm going to shift Joe to Alicia and say 508 probably again. Okay. Okay. Yonder says, "Hey, Mark and Alicia, thanks for your advice and sharing info. It was helpful during my application. And now, I got now the PR. God bless both of you. More power. We will definitely give you a little round of applause here. So thank you so much. This is what we love to see. We absolutely love to see that. Okay. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about this, Chris. Any new updates? No. Was it all just hype? Well, I don't think it's all just hype, but there's a whole lot of hype that really has no foundation yet because we don't know anything. We really don't know a lot about it other than this kind of strange comments that our dear minister has made. So, yes, we will see. Okay, let's see here. Um, Vancouverite says, hopefully not my physician too. Okay, and I don't mean to disparage. There's a bunch of reasons why scores are low. So they wouldn't be practicing here if they didn't if they weren't properly assessed. Okay, Spider-Man says, good morning. Mark and Alicia Spies joining from the icy, rainy Montreal. Back in Montreal again. Okay, good to have you here. Yeah, and this is a fair comment. So Canadian Sync Master says, may God help me this year. I'm in Canada for 5 years already. And there's so many people that are in your exact situation. So our prayers are with you, my friend.
Well, and one thing, like I've had some heartbreaking consultations this week, and
Mhm.
from people who have been in Canada for 5 years, they came to study, completed a master's program, and got really bad advice. And because of that bad advice, they've now had their express entry application refused twice. And because of how it was refused and the work experience they were claiming, it is now ruining their chances for any pathway to PR in the future because of the really poor preparation in what was provided for foreign work experience that IRCC just rejected, right? They said we don't believe this, right? We don't think it's believable.
Yeah.
And then now there's issues with the NOCs that they're claiming for the Canadian work experience, which IRCC
Yeah.
said we don't think it's believable. And so now people are in situations where they've literally worked for over 2 years in Canada that they now cannot properly claim without a risk of misrep because
Yeah.
they were not properly informed about how important that NOC selection is and getting your documents right and proving your work experience and showing that there's a logical progression in your career. And it's just, it honestly is heartbreaking. So be so careful.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really tough because never before are people in a situation where they only get one chance. Like this is like I always used to say that you may only get one chance with express entry, for instance, because if the scores go down, you have a birthday, whatever it might be, if the CRS keeps climbing, and it did for a long time when it was up to 430 or sorry 530 plus, and they were doing only tiny CEC draws. And so, and then a lot of people ask as well, Alicia, is this front loaded? Like, are they just loading up the year and then they're going to taper off and we won't see as many, as we go through the year? And yeah, it's possible that they could be, issuing more right now. And then, but at this stage, those are things that we can't control. So we just do the very, very best we can. I'm going to bring up a comment from Spidey. He says, if you ask, they will tell you that you are number 1 on the list, but actually you are number 14. What can you do? If you have doubt, don't use them. Simple as that. And if they do a program or they do something, a one-time only quick scoop or something like that, or there's a separate, I don't like to use the word program because they said it's not a new program, or if they revive the TR to PR and call it 2.0, like Joe thinks right here, the reality is, I think for all of us, well, at least within the firm, we will assist one person like we always do, because we will never prejudice another client. So there would be 3 that we would be able to do. We do have another lawyer that's hopefully joining us in April here, so we'll see how that plays out. But I will create another course. I will teach you everything that I know. We will do master classes each evening as we prepare. I will show you the forms, the documents, everything that you need, and strategies to get it submitted quickly. Because I think those are always ill-informed. They did it with the H-1B. They did it with the caregiver program. I did not wade into the caregiver, but I did a course for the H-1Bs and helped 100 people get through there. And so it just comes down to being prepared. And there's some things that you absolutely can do to be prepared no matter what happens. I shared those at the end of the video that I did on my 33,000 video. So you can go check that out. But yeah, right now there's just nothing we don't know. So she definitely stirred the waters, Joe, didn't she? And especially when she said we already soft launched it. So what do you do? All right. Oh, Chaitanya's back again. Oh, he's such a good supporter. Thank you so much, my friend. Mark and Alicia are amazing. They do their best possible to help, and they genuinely care and are highly professional. Thanks so much. And then I will in turn tell you, if you live in Regina, Saskatchewan, to go to Andy's No Frills and get all your groceries there. All right. And my daughter did, and I showed a picture last time of her and Andy. All right. Greetings from Froggy, Toronto. Shirley, it's good to see you. Benjamin joining from Kampala, Uganda. Hey, that's awesome. We'll give some applause. We don't get too many people outside of Canada these days. Oh, we got another one. We got Josephat, who is, hello, Mark and Alicia. Greetings from South Africa. I'm new here. We'll give you some applause too. Okay. All right, let's see here. We'll jump through. I think we're just about through the bulk of the hellos. Boy, lots of questions. We will dive right in. And Steph says, thanks for your answer. I'll follow your recommendations. You're very welcome. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. So let's go back to the beginning, and we're going to zip through as many questions as we can. Remember, these questions are ones in which we can provide information to help everybody, as many people as possible. Some of you, we may not answer your question directly. It might be too specific. And if it's a question that says, how do I do something? What should I do? How, do I qualify? That's really legal advice. And that's something that we're not able to do within our YouTube channel. However, we will still try to find a way to give information that will help you. If you would like assistance in any way with any applications, all you have to do is just go, there's a link below that allows you to book a consultation with our firm. You can click on Speak to a Lawyer. You can find us right here. You can go check out our Google reviews. I think we have more than 294 because I was just looking at it. We're really close to 300 here. So we're really close to on the Google review side. But it's super easy to book a consult with us. Just go here, check what length of time you want, the lawyer you want, and just see if, what time is available and jump in. All right. Okay, let's get to the top here. And some of the things we have, Alicia and I, like we do not practice in every area of immigration. We don't submit P&P applications to every province. Usually what happens is if it's a province we don't have experience with, we will refer them to our colleagues, immigration lawyers in those provinces. Like Quebec, we don't do Quebec-based immigration. I will refer them to our colleagues in Quebec. And so sometimes if we also skip your question, it's because we just don't have an answer for it as well. So for example, if I pull up Daniel here, he says, for the OINP foreign worker stream, if a nominee's salary increases after nomination and PR submission, does this need to be reported to OINP or IRCC? If so, what document is needed? And so when it comes to updating things within permanent residence, this is a perfect example. So like when you have, for example, express entry, if you're going through that process, often if you have those kinds of raises, things are really locked in at the EAPR stage. But if you change employers, if you move, if your contact information changes, then we always update that. If someone is on a labor market impact assessment and there's any deviation from what's locked in there, then absolutely you need to deal with it. You can't just go ahead and do it. Salary increases. Alicia, what are your thoughts on this? I don't know. I don't have an answer to this one.
And this is where Mark was saying with what kind of work permit do you have? And so depending on the type of work permit you have, if it's a closed work permit and there was an employer portal offer and you're locked in at a certain wage, or if it was worst, if it's an LMIA and you were locked in at a certain wage, or the employer was locked in at a certain wage and they changed your wage, that can be a compliance issue with ESDC. So in general on OINP, you've got to make sure that you're meeting the wage requirements in order to claim the profile points that you got, and also that it's more than the minimum for that area. But be careful if the wage is changing. Make sure that you're on an open work permit and you are able to have the wage changed. If that's the case, then usually I would update OINP and say, yeah, here's what has happened, and here's the new employer offer, and here's the new wage. Or maybe sometimes the employer just does a short little letter and says, we've increased the wage as of this date. If your not code is changing, if the duties are changing materially, that's also something you need to consider, because will that affect your application? You could fall outside of your eligibility parameters depending on how your job is changing. So it's something that you'd want to assess carefully with your employer to make sure you're not going to torpedo your application.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, TN Show asks a very good question. So, hello, Mark and Alicia. My police clearance has been further delayed due to the war. Can I submit my application with an explanation letter for now? It's the only thing holding us back from submitting. So, yes, you can, and that is the appropriate step to take, but you have to be very careful. So, any document that is requested by IRCC and is missing could lead to them returning the application as being incomplete. So, I'll start with that. The officer has discretion. In circumstances where it's kind of a force majeure, basically you don't have any control over what's happened. It's an act of God kind of thing, a natural disaster, war, things like that. IRCC does tend to show some mercy, although we are in a pretty merciless world right now. So the key is for you to be able to demonstrate that the request you made was as soon as possible after you received your ITA. And then to provide documentation showing that you've done all steps that are required of you and you're just waiting on the result. And then you indicate, I will forward it through a web form as soon as I receive it. And that's pretty much what you need to do. Because there's no other way of getting around it. And you probably, in most cases, I wouldn't want to decline the ITA unless I really knew that I was going to be, getting another one. It's just a world that it's too uncertain.
Yeah.
All right. B. Giddens says, my work permit was refused. Oh no. January the 9th. That's over 2 months ago. But my consultant didn't inform me, so I kept working unknowingly. Okay, I'll try not to pass judgment there. My daughter in elementary has no status but attends school in Ontario. What is the best options for us? Realistically, I recommend you book a consult, because this is, and we can kind of look at it and explore the options. But, this is the hard part, because the reality is, if your, work permit was refused, I'm assuming your daughter probably doesn't have status like you've indicated here. It's, the school is actually breaking the law by having your child continue to study. Although if I was the principal, I would do the same thing. I'm not a principal, I'm a lawyer, so I'm not advising anyone to break the law. But in this situation, it becomes really messy. And there may be some options, but ultimately, January 9th, you're still in a restoration period. I don't know why the work permit was refused, or what you'd submitted, but I'm sorry. That's all I can say is we feel bad for you. The minister had a bunch of comments as well in that newspaper article. Nicholas Kyung, I can't remember who the other reporter was, that Toronto Star article on the 33,000. They asked her a bunch of different things, and she reiterated that, please, if your status is expiring, then apply for an extension. Don't just stay here illegally. And then she said, but understand there's no guarantee we will approve your extension, and then just go home. Right. And well, the reality is Alicia and I would offer the same advice, but we're still have tremendous compassion, and we will look for any avenue we can to try to help you if it makes sense for you and it's the proper process to take. But
Okay.
boy.
And the other thing I will say is, if you hired a consultant, and this is one thing that I have had come up a number of times this week. So IRCC is sending out refusals on express entry left, right, and center, because they are going back to your initial study permit application and they are looking at what did you say for your foreign work history, what was your job title, what was your start date and your end date, and how did you describe in your letter of intent what you were going to do with your career path. And many people have hired agents. So they are unauthorized, unregulated, they are not properly a lawyer or a consultant in Canada. And that is illegal. So it is illegal for anybody who is not an immigration lawyer or a regulated immigration consultant in Canada, or in some certain circumstances, paralegal in some provinces. Only immigration lawyers, consultants, or in some circumstances, paralegals can provide legal advice and can charge a fee for it. Everything else is illegal. Many people don't know what their agent submitted on their first study permit application. So get control back of your application, understand what happened. The next thing that I would say, especially for this person who's saying that they had a consultant who didn't tell them that there was a refusal, is if it is a regulated consultant. So if you're dealing with an RCIC in Canada, there is a consultant's body, an oversight body, where you can make a complaint. So first of all, you want to go back to your consultant and say, hey, I have now suffered damages. I have suffered from my ability to be able to properly respond to IRCC because of your failure to tell me to communicate really essential information about my ability to work, because now you actually worked illegally. It was unauthorized work, which you now have to declare. So that has a real consequence for your life, and it is important that you report that consultant. If they're regulated, there's a disciplinary or an investigative process that could lead to disciplinary action. But there is also the fact that if your consultant is unregulated, it is something that you should report. This person should not be charging money to provide legal advice.
All right. I'm with you, Alicia. I'm with you. You know my thoughts on these things. Okay, let's jump to our next question here. This one is from JMCan24. Mark and Alicia, son's work permit and study permit expired February 2026. Son's work permit, study permit. Passport expiry, only able to extend work permit. Is it still possible to extend the study permit? Can he still work during this time? This is all of these right here are definitely a triangle, JMCan. I don't think I fully understand exactly the context here. Work permit and study permit expired February 2026. Maybe as a co-op, I guess. Passport expiry, only able to extend the work permit. Yeah, we need to have a consult to try to sort that one out. I'm not exactly sure what the consequent, like what happened, what resulted, why it was refused. Well, actually, it was expired. They just forgot to renew it, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's an odd situation because normally if you have the study permit's going to be valid for the full course of your studies plus 90 days, unless your passport was expiring, in which case you needed to make sure to submit that application and then show proof that you were still enrolled full-time or your son was still enrolled full-time in the study program. But yeah, it's odd to have a work permit unless it was specifically a co-op or an internship work permit that was required as part of the program. But if they are giving the work permit and it's a co-op work permit, you also have to have the study permit. You can't just get a co-op work permit unless now maybe your son has graduated and they're looking at a PGWP, but this is all very unusual. So.
Okay, next question here. This one's from Koya. Koya says, I got my bridging open work permit. Can I change occupation and employer? I'm staying the nominated province. My PNP has no employer restriction and bridging open work permit, no stated specific employer. Thanks. Okay, so this is where if you go to our website, and then I'm actually just going to adjust this just a second if I can. Let's see there. Okay, if you go to our website and then you go to blog, and then at blog, you can search. It will pull up a bunch of different articles, including this one that Alicia wrote. And it covers the distinction, between a bridging open work permit, that has restrictions, that doesn't allow for change of employment, and one that does. And so I encourage you to go check that out. But Alicia, do you want to tackle that one just quick here?
Yeah, so you're right, Koya. The first thing you want to check is, what does your nomination say? What are the what was the particular program under which you were nominated and what was the requirement for that? If it was an employer-driven program, of course, it's a big problem to change employers. If you had to submit something where you had points for a certain occupation or region that was, or a knock that was tied to that employer, again, you'd want to be careful. So sometimes if you have a PNP program that is not giving you points for that particular employer, your eligibility does not depend on it, your expression of interest score is not going to be affected. If there's no employment restrictions on your nomination and no specific stated employer, and you properly did your bridging open work permit, maybe it'll be okay to do that. You just want to check all these things very carefully ahead of time, because especially now that you are at the stage where you submitted your PR application, you do not want to blow up your ability to become a PR because of a few months of a change in employment. But it might be possible to do if you do it carefully.
All right. Okay, next question. This one is Subin. Says, seems IRCC is harsh with decisions on 2025 trades draw. Candidates with 1+ experience are getting rejections, and reason in the letters candidates' previous studies doesn't align with the job. Okay, so what's happening here, the moment IRCC started going to category-based draws, then people were sliding over to try to take positions that were trade level positions to be able to be eligible under those programs. And whenever you have someone working in a trade, there isn't the same level of educational requirements that maybe there might be in some other occupations. Now, some provinces are more regulated. They have more compulsory trades where you actually can't work in that occupation unless you have trade certification. But a lot of others are fairly soft. So for example, in Ontario, you can work as a welder. There's no restrictions, trade certification restrictions to being a welder. In Alberta, it's compulsory trade, so you can't actually work as a welder unless you have the trade certification. So you go through the actual apprenticeship program. And so because of that, people who are working in finance in a bank decided to slide over and go to welding shops and say, hey, teach me to be a welder, which, I'm still trying to figure out. I never heard from that person again. And I just hope that it was legitimate, But anyways, people that have work experience, if you've got, and before, remember, it was only 6 months of work experience. So are you truly like a journeyman regulated kind of trade level worker with just 6 months? Or are you a trades helper, which is usually the path that flows? So what they're doing is they're saying, well, your background, you have no education with respect to this trade. You just have an employer who's stating that you were a welder and that your duties match up with the knock. So this is what's happening. So just like everything else we've told you guys about, everything is being scrutinized more closely. So you have to go to great lengths to be able to prove your qualifications to claim points under these categories. And why? Because there's a lot of fraud. So if all that's required is a job offer letter, or basically a reference letter, pay slips, pay stubs, and and then maybe a notice of assessment or a T4, well, those all can be fabricated. And when IRCC sees this happening more and more, and I remember I met with a client, she was from China, and she volunteered that she had paid $75,000 for her job at a furniture store as a sales associate. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was some kind of it was more like technical sales. I can't remember, but it was a tier 3, and she never went to the job at all. They issued her pay slips, pay stubs, and filed the remittances and gave her a T4 and the reference letter, and $75,000 is what she paid. I was horrified. I obviously didn't, couldn't give her much advice other than that you got yourself into this, right? But this is really what's operating in the background with all of these things, why they're making it so much more difficult for people that are genuine. It's because lots of people are pushing the envelope. All right. Next on our list here, this one is from Manav. Hi team, I submitted my file under CEC with claiming 1 year of work experience. I recently left that job, will not affect points. My consultant says it's not necessary to submit updated experience letter. Do you agree? Oh, Okay, this is once again, I'm going to put a triangle down for this one, but Alicia, do you want to try to tackle this? Because usually I say book a consult and let's talk about it. But what exactly is happening here? Because we don't have the full context of your CEC. And, it's not our place to be second guessing or questioning, your consultant for sure. We have our own view on things. But Alicia, do you have anything you can offer Manav here?
Yeah, so Manav, take a look at the declaration that you sign. Hopefully you kept a screenshot when you go and you finalize your express entry application. And that big long page with all the declarations where you have to enter in your name and you say, I agree, and then you say transmit, and then it's that big long explanation again. Well, one of the things in there is that it says that you have an obligation to tell the truth. And, there's wording in there about updating your application for material changes. So be careful about whether it is something that you need to update IRCC about or whether it's not. You said it's not going to change your points. You already have the 1 year. So as long as everything was absolutely correct when you submitted that CEC application, maybe you are okay. But if you're changing your address or you're changing something, contact information, because you're moving for the new job, depending on what it is, sometimes for peace of mind, it's maybe worth it to just send a little web form and say, hey, I left that job and I started this job. But it might not affect your application depending on how you've structured it. So
Yeah.
it depends.
Yeah. So typically what I advise people is, yeah, if it's your current position, because when you submit your EAPR, you're indicating this is my current position, it's ongoing. In those circumstances, I'll send a web form to notify IRCC that I've changed jobs. I don't notify them about, past work history. Obviously that's locked in, but for a current job, I will. But no, I never upload a new experience letter. That's not required. The lock-in for
Maybe he
your
means explanation letter though.
oh, updated submit updated explanation letter.
It
Oh,
might
okay,
be
maybe.
explanation letter
Okay,
instead of
maybe if it's
experience
an
letter. I don't know.
explanation versus experience. Yeah, it maybe, yeah. And this is one of the challenges when we're trying to provide answers when we have limited information. But yeah, so yeah, I would notify through a web form, but I wouldn't, there's no documentation or anything that you need to prove. It's like people asking, okay, well, I lived here, but I don't have a lease agreement or something to prove it. Well, that's not required, so. All right, let's go to our first super chat here. Okay. I love this. This is my favorite. Okay. So, hi, Mike and Alicia. Okay, that's so good. It's all right. I'll be Mike. My Express Entry profile expires in 2 days. Could you briefly explain how resubmission process is? Okay. So if your profile is going to hit the 1 year and expire, well, ultimately it'll just become locked in as being withdrawn from the pool, and then you have to go in and recreate a new profile and submit it. Simple as that. All right, let's see. Next on our list here. Okay, looks like Esther here. My Canadian study permit was refused because I answered no to the question about previous visa refusals. At the time, my US visa was under administrative processing, so I didn't realize it could be interpreted as a refusal. How should I properly explain this in a new application, and what is the best way to address it when I'm reapplying? Well, what's the consequence? What happened when they refused it for you failing to answer no? Was there a finding of misrepresentation? Which is often what they do. So whenever we're get anyone who's answering, how should I properly, we always ring that bell, Esther, and we recommend that you slide over and book a consultation with us. The website is, the link to book a consult is below. So all you have to do is go to speak to a lawyer right here in the top right, and then go here and you can select whichever lawyer you'd like to book the consultation with. But yeah, this is something that I recommend, that you do in these circumstances, because there's a whole bunch of other factors here, and we just need a whole lot more information to be able to give you advice. Okay, we've had a couple more super chats that have jumped in. Let's see, Arshpreet. Let's see if we can find this. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. maybe this one, Arshpreet, I'm not sure. So Arshpreet had a super chat. A quick question, will there be a transport occupation drawn? What could be the CRS? Any speculation on STEM? Okay, so I know kind of a broad thing. If they put transport down, they will have a transport. The golden question that no matter how many crystal balls Alicia and I pull out, no matter how many is, right there, rub, 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 rub. The immigration is very tight-lipped about what they do with these draws and these rounds of invitations, and so it's extremely difficult to really predict what they're going to do. We've seen that there's been no STEM since 2024. Like there was no STEM all of last year. They've not removed it. So if I was, if I had to wager, I would probably put money on the fact that there's going to at least be one STEM this year. Otherwise, why keep it? Why keep it if you're not going to do a round of invitation? So that's my view. As far as the CRS score, if there's a STEM, it's going to be over 500. I guess with all of the CEC general draws and the francophone draws, maybe it could come down a little bit below, but our STEM category tends to be fairly high, and there tends to be lots of individuals in there. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did a STEM draw, they're probably, would do maybe 2,000 or something, that the scores would be above 500, but that's, I guess, not a guarantee. That's just me speculating. And as far as transport, well, you look at the occupations that are on the transport, they don't tend to be occupations where an individual has super high human capital. And so I would assume that those are probably, although if you remember,
pilots.
Yeah, pilots, yeah. But even then, the pilots are usually old. Like it's hard to get through, do your pilot training, do all of your hours, then get the jobs and all those kinds of things. So pilots for sure the one, but there's no more truck drivers on there like there used to be. And people would have a master's degree and then go drive truck and then, and then try to qualify through that. So that's part of the reason this whole ripple effect of other reasons IRCC is scrutinizing things and why it's so difficult to prove things. It's because with with these category-based draws, people are flipping back and forth. But yeah, I suspect that there's going to be a transport this year. I can't see why there wouldn't be, but I'd say probably the scores would be around 460 maybe at the top. Depends on how many they did. If they only do 250, if there's just a small draw, then that's, it's going to result in the CRS scores being higher. All right, let's see here. Next super chat. This one is Ajay, and Ajay says, my previous employer in India refused to put salary details in the experience letter. What should I do to prove my salary? Alicia, do you want to tackle that one? I cover this in detail in my course. I've got a whole bunch of different instructions, and obviously these are things we deal with all the time with our clients, but what are your thoughts on this one?
So literally, this is why somebody that I was talking to this week had their application refused because they were working with a consultant and the consultant said, oh, you know what, maybe let's just get a screenshot showing a note from your employer saying, yeah, you can start in this position. That's all they had. And that application got refused, and the consultants had said, oh yeah, that's enough for now. We can just provide that now, and then if immigration has questions, we can provide updated documents later. That is not true. So if your employer is not going to put salary details in your explanation letter, salary details is one of the requirements when you look at the completeness check of express entry. And so that's what officers are following. And if there are no salary details in there, your application will get refused. So you've got to figure out, is there an alternate way that I can put salary details before the officer? Maybe you will have a contract that might have had salary information in it in addition to your experience letter from your employer right now. Maybe you can go back through your pay stubs. Maybe you can go back through your bank account if it shows the name of your employer when that deposit is coming into your account. Depending on how much money you made, you may or may not have had to declare taxes on that income. So there's a few ways that you might be able to cobble together proof of what your salary might have been, but understand that there is always a risk as soon as you're not complying with exactly what immigration is asking for from that letter from your employer. So there is a risk that they don't believe you unless you can use a number of different points to try to say this was my salary at this job.
Okay, next one here. This one is, we'll just close those off. Okay, so this one is from Barbara. Hi, Mark. Waiting on my non-express application, but want to create an express entry now that I have a year of skilled work experience. The GC Key platform doesn't allow me to create one due to my non-express entry application. Okay, so this shouldn't be a thing, Barbara. Your non-express entry application, if it is permanent resident, would have gone through the PR portal. The express entry is through the GC Key, as you've identified. So I'm just wondering, this doesn't make sense. So this is kind of like a consult kind of territory, Barbara. So we can kind of sit down and sort it out, because yes, if you have one express entry profile in the queue, you can't create another profile. If you filed an express entry, you can't like create a new profile when you've submitted it if there's one in the queue. But if it's a non-express entry, it's usually directed, well, almost always that I'm aware of, to the PR portal, which is a whole separate system. So I'd love to see what you have going on. If somehow immigration in the background has created this link between the two, you know, and is trying to block people, because there's no law against submitting more than one PR. It's just for sponsorships, you can't sponsor more than one person at a time.
What I've seen is that normally people make a mistake when they're trying to create that express entry profile that makes them ineligible. So if you don't have that 1 year of Canadian high skilled work experience, for example, and you're trying to use your foreign work experience, sometimes people don't realize, well, you can't use foreign work experience that's older than 10 years old. Or are you meeting those selection factor minimum eligibility pass marks of 67 points? Because if you're not meeting those, then it'll say your profile is ineligible.
All right, we'll jump back in here. Let's see here. Oh, Yonder Channel says, been watching since we arrived here back 4 years ago. Purchased the Express Entry Accelerator and Masterclass, and that was helpful for my non-express entry for some few requirements. Thank you. That's great. So that's a pretty good example of the universal nature of these PR applications. There's some nuances in the various applications that you submit, whether it's express entry or non-express entry, and that's a reality. But in many cases, there's a lot of overlap. You have to be careful because those nuances can make the difference between an approval or a rejection. But yeah, the course itself, the express entry, is so comprehensive and full, and it's great. I'm so glad that you were able to benefit from it. And the reality is, for Yonder, I don't know when you purchased the course, but if you bought it back in 2021 or 2022, each time that we reiterated, you would have had full access to the new updated one as well, including all the master classes. So, and as you can see, this this whole live Q&A that we do is actually sponsored by the Express Entry Accelerator. And those of you who are wondering, what is this course that Mark offers? All you have to do is go into the description below. And when you go there, it will take you right to our site here. And on this site, you can, there's a free PDF guide there. You can check out our courses. And right now we've really limited what we have because we're pretty swamped. We haven't had a chance to update the other courses. And if course becomes updated, we pull it down. Or if it becomes outdated, we pull it down. This one's still sitting here. I keep poking fun at Igor because he created this link here, coming soon. This has been coming soon for over a year. But anyways, this is the Express Entry Accelerator course. And there's over 10 hours of videos that completely walk you through the whole process. And as you go through here, our next masterclass is next week. It's in 6 days. And then if we go down here, you'll be able to see that there's a breakdown of all of the sections within the course, learning the basics, and determining your eligibility, completing the profile, completing your EAPR, and it covers every section for the applicant, the accompanying spouse. There's lessons for dependent children. So if you don't have dependent children or a spouse, you can skip through these lessons. And it's designed to help you fast track the process so that you're doing it properly. And I can tell you that people that watch the videos and pay attention, they are far, far more prepared than someone who just, say, jumps strictly to the mastering your document section. And we have, within each of these sections, we have checklists and sample documents and a whole bunch of other things within Module 6. I love this section because this often is where express entry is made or it fails. It's on the document side, and there's one for every single application out there. So yeah, so you can just click on the link below and subscribe, and every 2 weeks we jump on and do a masterclass and answer any of your questions, but in a much more intimate way than this. It's more of a Zoom call where you can get on and your video and audio, and we talk and we learn together. And yeah, it's designed to kind of be the gravy on the mashed potatoes. So essentially, or the gravy on the roast beef. You've got everything that you need is in the course if you just watch it. But then any specific things that maybe come up that are much more, specific than we can answer here in the live stream. So go check that out. And of course, we use that with our clients when they retain us. And you can just go to our website and see how we work with our clients. Lots of people forget that Alicia and I are immigration lawyers, and we love doing these live Q&As. But we also work directly with people through what we feel is an awesome process. And we've been doing this for quite a number of years. And if you go to our website and you take a look at About Us, you'll see our approach. And it is a direct lawyer to client collaboration. So we don't use anyone between. So when you retain myself or Alicia or Igor, you retain us. Nicole is our intake specialist, our paralegal. She's awesome. And she helps us to make sure all the calls are set up properly, to schedule. She'll go in and take a quick look at the documents to make sure something isn't missing before I do my full review. But it's myself and you. And we go forensically through everything, and we put the application together. We even submit it together, upload and submit. And so you can learn more about that process here. Oh, interesting. We'll have to check that out. I'm not sure why that video is not there. Okay, we'll check that out. Anyway, so you can go check it out, and you can read the reviews if you want to see people's experience working with us. So yes, you can absolutely hire us to help you with your application. Okay. Zipping through here, Shirley says, I have around 60 plus travel history lines. I noticed that the system only accepts up to 50. So then extra sheet of paper in, typically I would put that in kind of the client information section, LOE with the ones that you can't fit. That's how you deal with it. So good for you for being comprehensive. Sanjosh says, hey, my postgrad expired and applied work permit extension before it expired. I applied same for my wife. Me as the principal, I have the submission letters. Can we continue work? I will once again ring the bell and say that you should reach out and book a consult so that we can address this. But at a general level, Alicia, what are we getting at here with what this question is directed towards?
So maintain status is a big can of worms, but the big problem right now that Mark and I and Igor have been seeing is that you need to have a reason for why you are applying for a work permit extension. If your postgrad work permit is expiring, there are no extensions on a postgrad. I will say that again. There are no extensions on a postgrad. What there is a recapture of time. So if you happen to have received your postgrad work permit for a shorter period than you were supposed to have gotten because of the duration of your program, just because your passport was expiring, it's a recapture of time application, but you have to be really careful on how you submit that application. It normally has to be a paper application. If it wasn't a recapture of time, your passport was valid the whole time, you had your PGWP, and now you're just trying to get bonus time in Canada, what is the reason for the new work permit? 99% of the time, your employer has to go out and get a labor market impact assessment, an LMIA. And only if they have that approved is that the basis for your new work permit. It's going to be a closed employer-specific work permit. In some cases, maybe you speak French. Maybe you can do a mobilité francophone work permit, but only if you have those NCLC level 5 and your employer has to do an employer portal offer. So you have an A number through that. Be careful on what was the reason for your work permit extension. The other real difficult thing is that your spouse is not just eligible for an open spousal work permit unless you can prove that you're working in a tier 1 or a tier 0 or one of the eligible tier 2 or tier 3. So maybe your spouse is not going to be eligible for a work permit anymore, depending on what reason you're applying for your work permit and what job you are working and you can prove the knock on. So lots of things to consider.
You bet. Okay, let's see here. Vaudel says, hey, Mark and Alicia, recently got eCoper through French Stream. Your live Q&A was very helpful for the application. Thank you. Also, my photo got rejected for a PR card. How long it would be delayed? That's a good question. Like, there's lots of photos get rejected, even when you use the little system to make sure it fits right. Sometimes they'll still reject it. So don't spare any money on getting those photos. Get them done perfect, correct? And then you're going to have a whole lot easier time getting that PR card. But yeah, I don't know, Alicia. This is something that often our clients at that stage are on their own. They're doing their own kind of stuff. So I don't have any experience with that. Okay, Catherine says, I didn't indicate my foreign experience during the Postgrad application, which I'm now claiming for. Because I read from various articles, it's not required. Okay, so those various articles were people that don't know what they're doing. I did disclose it during study, though. Am I cooked? Catherine. Alicia, is she cooked? Is she cooked? How do you deal with this?
It
We
depends.
see it all the time, Catherine. We see it all the time. So you're not unique.
Yeah. So, Catherine, what I normally do is in a consultation, I will sit down with someone and go through and say, okay, what did you put in the study permit? What did you put in the PGWP? Did you have extensions on your study permit? Did you have visitor visas in the meantime? If you put it on the study permit, but you forgot it on the PGWP, was that a reasonable mistake? Was there anything else that showed that you have declared that work experience in the past? And then how solid is that work experience, right? How solid is the letter from the employer? What sort of pay stubs, tax documents, supplementary information do you have to say, you know what, for real, I was doing this job, but I put it on my study permit, but I just forgot to put it on my PGWP. It depends. Take responsibility for the mistake, explain it, but sometimes, depending on how it was done, what the not code is that you're trying to claim, sometimes there's a risk of misrep depending on what you've done in your previous applications. So it's something we'd want to talk about.
Yep. Bella says, hi, good day. Is it possible that a spousal open work permit holder can be an international student? Options are running out of time, especially with age 40 plus. Well, you can apply, but if you're 40 plus and you're applying for a study permit as an accompanying spouse or otherwise, understand that you got to really meet the same bona fides that a person would have to meet under normal circumstances when they're studying. It may be slightly less burdensome when you're already in Canada, but they're still going to question whether or not this intention to study is truly genuine. And one of the things they always look at is, how is this education going to help you in your home country, not here in Canada? So just be aware of that. There's no restriction or law saying you can't apply independently, but you'd have to apply independently for a study permit. I think the provisions I'm trying to remember, Alicia, for applying for a study permit, that's a good question. If you're accompanying a spouse on a work permit, you yourself are on a work permit here, it allows you to apply for your study permit from within Canada. So that's one positive. But yeah, you still have to meet all those genuineness.
And you also have to meet temporary intent. And if it's only you and your spouse and you're both in Canada and you've been in Canada for a number of years and you have not strong ties to your home country, you've got a steeper hill to climb.
Okay, this is a tricky one. Vancouverite boy says, IRCC rejected my my startup visa work permit. I've been working for my Canadian company from abroad. Now work permit path is closed, so I can't reply. Would this count as Canadian work experience, and what shall I do next? So it doesn't count as Canadian work experience, working for a Canadian company when you're not in Canada, and there's not much that you can do next. When you have 40,000 startup visa applications in the queue, they've shut it down. I have, although the minister, ironically, she said, "Oh, we will never use our godlike powers from the bill that we're running through to cancel applications." Like, that is just that's the whole reason why they created it, was so that they could call out applications. And so they're targeting startup visas because they feel there's just a lot of people that never truly had an intention of starting up a company. And so you're kind of caught in this situation. But there's not much that you can do. If the work permit was refused, was there grounds to file a judicial review? Did you do that? Whenever you have any work permit that's refused, you have the ability to challenge that refusal. So did you seek assistance with that? But no, it wouldn't count as Canadian work experience. And there's not much you can do. You're outside of Canada. Got an application in the queue. It says what, like 50 years or 100 years at the rate they're processing, 500 a year or something. And that's not even that's not just the startup visa. That's also self-employed. So those two, and then there's, 500 a year. Yeah, you're looking at like 100 years processing. So that's not sustainable. They're obviously going to do something. We're just about out of time here, guys. Trying to hit a few more. Basil says, I have 1 year foreign work experience. Also, I am currently working. Will reach the 1 year mark in June. Can I submit express entry profile now and update the work experience in June 2026? So he says he has 1 year foreign work experience. I'll assume, Alicia, that the current work is in Canada. And so the short answer is yes. If you have 1 year of foreign work experience, you can absolutely submit that profile. You're going to list your Canadian work experience as your current job, and it will automatically give you credit and eligibility for CEC once you cross over that 1 year threshold. Remember, it will round up, so it'll probably maybe even give you the credit for it before you actually obtain the 1 year. You want to make sure that you always, before you submit any EAPR, if you have an ITA, that you wait until you've fully recaptured. But this is a perfect example, Basil, where you can do this without misrepresenting. Anyone else who doesn't have foreign work experience, who enters a profile, and in the eligibility, when you're filling out the little wizard to help you create your profile, if you have 10 months of work, but it rounds it up to 1, you can't, you'd be lying. If it says, do you have 1 year of skilled work experience? So that's where people are misrepresenting when they create their profile with, early, when they haven't yet fully reached the 1 year. So be aware of that.
Yeah, so Basil, be careful that when you're creating your profile, when it asks, do you currently have 1 year of Canadian work? Say no, right? You're
No.
just relying
Yeah.
on that foreign work, which
The
means
federal
you have to
skilled
have
worker
settlement
program.
funds.
Yep.
And you have to meet the 67 points. So
Yep.
check that out.
Okay, dear friends, sorry, I have another question. If the application portal is still frozen, what are the options to submit the application on time? Also, can job post of my position support Canadian experience letter? Don't know what that is. But
I
portal
think
stuck.
sometimes two things really quick because we're over time.
We are OT here.
And one thing is try going incognito mode. So sometimes what's happening is your browser cache is not clearing. So try opening a new incognito window, log into your GC key, try that. It shouldn't be totally down. I haven't seen a note that it's totally down. So I think it might just be slow and there's issues on your end, but try an incognito window. The second thing is sometimes people use job postings for their position to support their Canadian experience. Remember that a job posting was way back when before you started the job. So it's not anywhere near as good as your letter of confirmation from your employer saying this is what Steph did all the way going back in time and actually completed this work, because sometimes the job posting is not actually the job that you end up doing depending on the needs of the company. So it is really, really important that you take a look at exactly what IRCC needs in the completeness check with letters of reference, that you follow that to the T as much as possible. And maybe if you're providing supplementary information about your job duties or something as they were posted, maybe, but sometimes that's a double-edged sword because it might be listed differently in your letter and differently in the job posting, and that becomes confusing. So it depends.
You bet. Okay, we'll finish with just a couple little things here. I appreciate the positive comments from people that have been watching for a long time. So Leaf Disno says, thank you for continuously sharing your knowledge. Mark and Alicia, you just don't, I think, know whose life you can change. I'm one of them, already a citizen and still love watching you. I love that. That is so cool. And then Harseem says, your live sessions definitely help me. Thank you both. Joe is pumping the express entry accelerator, so I really, really appreciate that. That means a lot, Joe. And then Steph says, you're amazing. I think all of us here are very grateful for your amazing support. All the resources you share are always appreciated, and we really value that feedback. It makes us feel good about what we're doing and that we're not wasting our time, but we're making a difference. And then the last one I'll pull up here is a question that Catherine and maybe a lot of you are asking. She says, do you review documents, i.e. proofread or be quick second eye for DIYers can't find on your website? So we work with DIYers. They are by far the clients that we work with more than anyone else. We teach you how to prepare your applications, and then we sit with you and review everything forensically. We help you upload documents, and we even help you submit, and then you maintain control of your application. But one thing, Catherine, that I do not do, and Alicia, I have to defer to you, I don't just review one document or two documents. There was a time 7, 8 years ago where I created a gold, silver, and bronze plan, essentially. And the bronze plan was looking just at the documents for express entry. Well, looking at those in isolation is not helpful. And so without knowing everything you've put into your EAPR, it creates a real danger for me because you may have put something different in the EAPR than is actually on your documents, and then it gets refused. So having me review a document in isolation is just not helpful. And in fact, I had a client who came back and after he'd purchased the bronze plan very early on, and he said, my application got rejected because of my work history. And he said, you didn't do a proper job reviewing my reference letter. And I went back and looked at it with him and I said, wait a minute, you put the wrong information in your EAPR. I never looked at that. And so after that, I never did another document like this, including letters of explanation and things like that. When we do it, it's all in. That's what we do. So we do a lot of consultations with people. We don't review 1 or 2 documents in the consult. Sometimes we'll help people to find the correct knock code, but we're never going to say, this reference letter is perfect without knowing everything that you've got already put into your work history. So but yeah, that's all we do. We don't take over applications. We don't file through our representative portal in the traditional way. You have access to everything. You see everything. We do it together. We submit it together and you maintain control. And then we give you an advice for consideration letter that tells IRCC that we were specifically retained to help you in that defined scope. So that's how Alicia and I work. So no middle people.
And Catherine, I'll end with an analogy. Your express entry application is like a sweater. And if you start pulling out just one string, it affects everything else in the fabric of your application. And Mark and I we will look at these things forensically and we'll start drilling down, and then the client will say, oh, but then that affects this. And then what did I put on my previous application? And what did I put on the 4 previous applications before that? And that all affects this application. So everything is so intertwined. IRCC is using AI all over the place, and it has to be comprehensive when you review your application.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we see a lot, you guys, more than ever before, is inconsistencies in previous study and work permit applications. And so we're looking at those things too. Let's go back. Let's pull up your 5710 forms. Let's pull up your 1295s, all those forms, and see, what did you list your title as? What did you say the duration of your work was? When did it start? When did it end? And then there's this whole element of letters of explanation to explain it proactively. So, it is a lot of work, and and we basically don't take shortcuts. And when we know clients like you, DIYers, we love you because you're prepared to do the work that is needed to make sure that we have the information that's going to help us get to the best result. Whereas if individuals say, oh, just deal with it, I won't worry about it. Well, the reality is you're not a good fit for our firm then. All right. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. It was an awesome live Q&A today. We kind of went a little bit longer. It seems like we keep creeping a little bit longer and longer. They're supposed to only be an hour, and then we have our staff meeting, and every week we meet to talk about our files and to collaborate and to talk about things in the firm, and so we better get over to that. But if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do it. Please share it. We're just about to 68,000, I think, subscribers on the YouTube channel, which really makes makes us feel good about what we're trying to do and that we're not wasting our time. And like I said, we talk about trying to give help. We can't give legal advice. Yeah. Wow. Okay. We're just about up to 69. So we're getting up there. And this is all kind of organic growth. We just post and more. I also want to thank you for the people who create ChatGPT and Google Gemini and Claude because well, Gemini and GPT is what I've specifically had reports back that people they're telling you to hire us. So we must be doing something right. So I think, thanks to the creators of the AI programs out there. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. And there was a question about the song, which is this one right here. So we will, for your benefit, we'll wrap it up with the song and we'll sign off and see you next week. Take care.
Snowy peaks and open skies, northern winds whisper goodbyes. Dreams take root where the maples grow, a land of promise where rivers flow. Welcome to the north, where the light shines so bright, chasing every dream beneath the stars. ready to belong, building futures here where hearts grow strong. Borders fade as hope ignites, a new dawn rising in the endless night. Together we climb, hand in hand we stand. You're home now in this welcoming land. Welcome to the north, where the light